You're listening to the Fezcast, produced on behalf of the Saracen Supporters Association and featuring the independent thoughts, rants and rambles of Saracens fans and special guests. If you'd like your opinion to be heard on the show, you can find the Fezcast on Facebook or Fezcast_SSA on Instagram and whatever Twitter is known as these days. But for now, enjoy this week's show.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Well, hello everybody and welcome to another edition of the Fezcast. We're recording this on Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock because, I'm off for the rest of the week. It's my birthday this week. But, don't send me any big presents. I get terribly embarrassed, of course. But it's not me who's been in the pub. It's Barry who's joined us. He's been in the pub all afternoon. And also, Duncan, you're okay. You've not been on the beers, have you, Duncan?
No, but my entire life is a holiday.
Oh, yeah, that's fair enough, isn't it? Yeah, you've always got that look of the look that Barry's got this precise second. I mean, chance to have a few beers on a Monday afternoon, Barry, you've got to take them, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what the pub was invented for.
Well, indeed. And I mean, speaking of being on the beers or being on the gins more accurately, I mean, we got to talk about last week's show, in particular the interview with Morecambe and Wise. Sorry, French and Saunders. Sorry, Millard and Blacklock. I mean, it was comedy gold, wasn't it? I mean, well done to Matt and Joe, but they were totally superfluous to requirements, weren't they, last week, Duncan?
Yeah, and I'm going to take the tip that, as you know, there's a certain Saracens winger I'm tracking down to have a chat with, and I'm going to send him a bottle of gin in advance.
Fair dues. I mean, yeah. I mean, perhaps we ought to do Fezcast, make our own Fezcast gin, and then have that as a sweetener for everybody who comes on, and just get hammered. But yeah, no, we've got a few things to talk about in this show. First off, some sad news. We've got a couple of bits of sad news. We're going to start off with Wolfie. Tom's had to retire from the game of rugby through injury, and it's such a crying shame. There's a lad who, no luck whatsoever throughout his career, but it's got to be the right decision, hasn't it, Duncan?
Well, it has to be. I mean, he's had so many concussions over recent years, and reminds me of the time when Alistair Hargreaves was going through the same thing, and eventually, it had to be faced up to. But huge shame. I think I'm right in saying he's 28, so his peak years were just coming, and he was blinking good anyway.
Well, absolutely, Barry. I mean, you will remember go back about 3 or 4 seasons, when Jamie George was off on international duty and Wolfie was fit. He had a period of time where he was scoring tries for fun. Couple of games with braces in them as well. You might even have got a hat-trick at one point, I think, if I remember rightly. And, commentators on the TV and whatever were talking about him being a bolter for England spots as well, Barry.
Yeah, he was definitely on the right trajectory. I mean, if he'd managed to keep injury-free for a while, he who knows where his final limit would have been. But at one point you could almost guarantee anything we got that was 10 metres out. It was, if we had the throw into the line out, it was going over, and Wolfie was invariably going to be at the bottom of the pile.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, we wish Wolfie all the best, and indeed he did come on the Fezcast sometime, I think, in season 2. He was partly responsible for one of my most embarrassing moments, where I was sat there with Joe Shaw just after Alex Anderson had signed for Sale as head coach, and we were talking about who was going to be the new head coach, and never mentioned Joe's name. And Tom never said nothing at the time, just sat there next to Joe with a little grin on his face. So, I mean, I spoke to Ollie. Hopefully we can get Tom on a future show, because it'd be lovely to talk to him and, give him our best wishes, as it were. But moving on for better news, playing-wise, a couple of good bits of news come out in the last few days. First off, Jose Hetfield, another great little hooker, has signed a contract extension to come in next season. I mean, we said this a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, Duncan? He's put some performances in that have won him that contract, and all good to him. Well done to the lad.
Mark McCall was talking about how he'd put in a couple of performances that had really impressed everybody, but it was the Exeter one for me. I mean, he was on for the whole game, whether he was meant to be or not. He was on for the whole game, and it was outstanding. So it's really good to see him signed, and given that our number one and our number two are going to be away with England, whenever there's an overlap with the England games or the England training sessions, he's going to be on. And he'll be on more than that because injuries are inevitable, aren't they? And it's good to have him there.
Absolutely. I think a fantastic signing and really shown his worth. And another one who's shown his worth, Barry, who has signed, well, for the rest of the season. But, again, another player who may even be playing for a contract. Even though he's about the same age as me, I'm in his early 50s. But Lugovi Mulipola, he's come in, done us a fantastic job in a position where we were really worried. Baku gets a long banner. Ronnie Marvey's only just coming back from injury, been out, and Mulipola's come in and shown that position up for us, which was causing us a few issues, wasn't it, Barry?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've struggled a little bit at scrum time all season, and he's definitely helped with that. Far more solid since he's come in, and as you say, it's great news. He'll be around for at least the rest of the season, and I wouldn't put it past him extending that even further.
No, absolutely not. And I think if he did, I mean, nobody's going to be too one surprised or too disappointed in any way whatsoever. It's very easy for loan players to be a player that you picked up. Okay, you're not expecting a great deal of them. They come in, pick up a fairly decent wage. They can move around clubs. Is there that loyalty there? Mulipola's come in and not shown any of that. And whether that's because it's Saracens and the way that Saracens do things, Duncan, I just feel he's come in and he's really bought into the ethos of the club, and he's really, offered something to us more than just being a stopgap, just get us out of the crap sort of like signing.
I forget his name now, but the bloke we've got in charge of recruitment's a genius, isn't he?
With who he
goes, where he goes out and recruits. The other great thing about Mulipola is, and he is great. The last game again, the scrum was blinking solid. But he started the game, and it's very entertaining when you get to minute 60 if he's still on, because you're wondering whether he's actually going to manage to get off the pitch without expiring.
It's not very often you see the truck brought on for a substitution, is it? It's like Mako as well, though, isn't it? I mean, you look at Mako, and Mako looks tired in minute one, doesn't he? But then he'll put 72 minutes on the pitch and look as knackered at the end of it as he did at the start of it. Yeah, fantastic stuff. Let's have a break there, and then we'll come back and have a quick discussion about the Mavericks, and we can show all of our ignorance about netball and everything. And also, big game coming up on Friday night for the men against Leinster.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
You're listening to the Fezcast, which is proudly sponsored by the Saracens Supporters Association. And I'm Alison Davis, one of the SSA committee. For a £10 annual subscription, the SSA provides our members with monthly newsletters, virtual and in-person player events, away match ticket allocations, and we organise pre-match gatherings at away matches. We sponsor men's and women's players, and we support the Saracens Foundation Track Club on behalf of our members. On top of all that, every year we have a seasonal SSA badge, which is exclusive to members. Where else can you get that much value for a tenner? Join now at membermojo.co.uk/SSA, or come and see us on match day in the Oasis at the Stonex.
This is the Fezcast.
Well, yeah, welcome back to the second part of this week's Fezcast. And quick mention, last week, not only did we have Lou and Beth being interviewed, but Matt did a great interview as well with Eddie Ratu of Saracens Mavericks, and they started their season with a very thrilling, by the sounds of it, 48 draw. I mean, it's great, isn't it, actually, in a way, because, I mean, netball's a game that really needs some more exposure, and has been gaining exposure, through, and as Elliot said, with England and how well they're doing and everything. The game needs to grow, and it's right for growing the game, isn't it, Barry?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not quite so entrenched with the areas and with the geography of it.
Absolutely, and as I say, from the sounds of it, a very thrilling game. An exact reverse. First half, Saracens Mavericks went in 26-22 up, and then lost the second half 26-22. So, I mean, it seems like it was a very evenly matched game, and obviously some great entertainment. And they've got a game coming up this week as well on Saturday. So if you can, which is their first home match, and I can't remember who it's against, and I'm terrible at this sort of thing. But yeah, if you can get yourself along, I would definitely recommend it. I'm going to try and get along with my bonus daughter Gemma and my wife Shazza at some point to see one of those games. But I think they're going to be absolutely brilliant. But talking about getting along to games, you guys going to be at Stone X on Friday night for the for Leinster coming along?
I definitely will be, although a little bit pissed off because, as you know, I also follow the Catalan Dragons, and we've got a 9-month gap of games, and the one game that we've got clashes with the one game in London that the Catalan Dragons are playing. But anyway, I'll be down at the Stone X and watching the other on the catch-up.
Well, absolutely. Well, look, I mean, they've announced the provisional squad for this Leinster game, and fair dues, they're going pretty solid on this. I mean, just looking at the highlights, Aroni Mawi's in the squad, which is great to see him back. James Hadfield, as we said, we talked about him earlier on. Theo McFarlane shoots it. Callum Hunter-Hill's back. That's great to see him back in the squad as well. Billy, Toby Noy, Ollie Stoneham, Juan Martin Gonzalez in the forwards. You've got Gareth Simpson, Alec Davis, Ivan Van Zyl all in the squad from half. I mean, there's a lot of talent on show. So, I mean, it's not going to be a game of, second teams going at each other. It's going to be a full-blooded good game of rugby, isn't it, Barry?
Yeah, it's a much stronger squad than I feared it might be. I mean, admittedly, they have named 35 or whatever, which Leinster's full team, we might need all 35 of them to stand a chance. But yeah, it's a stronger squad. Let's hope game. The club have come in for a bit of criticism that I've seen on social media about this from both sides. They've said some people with season tickets have said, a bit of an insult getting this as a replacement for Wasps or Worcester, and other people have said, you're charging money. Basically almost a pre-season friendly, but you've got to feel sorry for the club. Whatever they do is going to get criticised from some side or another. And
both those criticisms are absolute hogwash, aren't they? Number one, I mean, they're putting something on. It's not Saracens' fault that Wasps and Worcester have gone under. No. They've no obligation to give you something in replacement for it. The fact of the matter is they have, and they've given you one of the top teams in Europe. Now, yeah, okay, it might be a pre-season, whatever it may be, but that's something. They've gone out and they didn't need to do that. They could have just turned around and said, we'll have that time off. It suits them to have a game because obviously the 19-month break that we've had, Duncan, is ridiculous as well. And it's a quality match. And what do they expect? Things cost money. They're not going to turn around and say, we're going to do this for you. No, you pay. That's what that's the nature of the world. You live in a capitalist world, things cost. Stop moaning about it. God, Jesus, there you go. I've had a Jez rant there.
I do question, I'd wonder how many people actually complain because, some people will complain about anything. I mean, as you say, what were they meant to do? They put on a top fixture and they've made it free to season ticket holders. Non-season ticket holders have got to pay. Well, fair enough. Leinster wants some money for it. Yeah. And there's costs of putting it on. What are they meant to do?
It does boggle me when you see some people complaining about the stupidest things ever. And I mean, it's like, I'm a West Ham fan and David Moyes is getting it all at the moment. Our most successful manager ever. I mean, good God, it's just Ooh, that blows my mind. But there we go. Anyway, before I delve into another rant on that one, shall we have a break there, and then we'll come back and talk a bit more about Six Nations more, and also we got some other sad news to deal with as well.
Hi, this is Petrus Duplessis, and you are listening to the Fezcast.
This is the Fezcast.
Well, here we are again on the Fezcast, part 3 of this week's show, and we're going to start off with some sad news. And from all of us at the Fezcast, and indeed from all our Saracens family, I feel we need to pass on our condolences to Jamie George and his family, as obviously it's been announced that Jamie's mum, Jane, a huge Saracen supporter in herself, a huge presence at StoneX, unfortunately lost a battle with cancer in the last week. So, really sad news. And, we like to say to Jamie and his family, huge sympathy and condolences from all of us here. It does lead me on, though, to having a little bit of a moan at the press because, again, Jamie George is a pretty private guy. He's got a lot on his plate. His wife's pregnant and, she's quite heavily pregnant. He's just taken over as England captain and done a pretty fine job of it as well in the first 2 games. He loses his mum, and then people like rock.co.uk and Rugby Pass and those numpties all over the place see that as an opportunity to throw out non-stories like Steve Borthwick's got this massive decision to make about Jamie George. No, he hasn't. Steve Borthwick will go to Jamie George and say, Jamie, how are you feeling? Do you want to play? Yes. Do you want to play? No.
Well, no, there's no point speculating. As you say, it's down to Jamie. Totally, he'll know where his head's at, and whether it's right for him to play. Totally his choice.
Oh, absolutely. I went last Friday to Twickenham for the England's training session, which was really excellent. I'll talk about that more in a bit. But Jamie was there, the day after sort of thing, or a couple of days after his mum had passed, and he seemed totally on it. He was leading the team. He was talking to the team. He came and signed autographs afterwards. He was chatting to the kids. He was chatting to Ugo Monya. Everything, and he seemed absolutely focused on the job in hand, and 100% committed to the game of rugby, which we know he will be, and which, as we say, Barry, we know his mum would want him to be, and his family would want him to be.
Yeah, we all have to deal with grief at some point in our lives, and we all deal with it differently. Some people want to go back to work. Some people want to say it. And it's purely up to the individual. It's obviously harder for a professional sportsman because they're doing this in the public eye. But Jamie will know what Jamie wants to do, and whatever he wants to do, he will do properly and do what's right for him.
Absolutely. Now, moving on from that, I will say the Twickenham training session. Well done, England RFU. Brilliant for them to actually open that up for us to be able to go along. It cost me £1 for my ticket, and that was purely an administration fee. Parking was free. I probably parked in the wrong place because I parked in a staff car park, but nobody seemed to worry about that too much. But there were 10,000 people in there. The day was hosted by Ugo Monya, who does a great job every time I see him. He impresses me more and more and more on the telly or in real life or whatever. He did an absolutely fabulous job of describing what was going on, talking to various people, Dylan Hartley there, Topsy Ojo, people like that, gave a real insight into what was going on the training session. And the training session itself was absolutely full-blooded, Duncan. They said it was like a Tuesday session. And Dylan Hartley made the really, really valid point, which is, I suppose Dylan hasn't actually gone into coaching, because I think he would be a good coach, but he made the point, this is the session where you want to see mistakes made. He said, so if you see the ball being dropped or tackles being missed, don't worry about it, because this is the session where you go full-blooded, you make those mistakes, that you then have the time to review afterwards. But I didn't see that many mistakes being made, which was quite good to see. There was a full squad out there, including the returning players like Ollie Lawrence, Manu Tuilagi. Marcus Smith, he went off and did a very intense personal fitness test, which probably says that he's not quite fit and ready for Scotland. But yeah, it was exceptionally good to see Duncan.
Well, is it full-blooded tackles?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you had Carl Dixon there refereeing them as well. And they went 15 versus 15 at the end for a 20-minute session and went full-blooded. Absolutely full-blooded. It was really impressive to see, and I mean, you see an awful lot of these things where they will do open sessions. And it's very much, it seems like they're going through the what's the word I'm looking for? The processes almost, just, walking through it almost. What they wanted here was 10,000 people in Twickenham making a lot of noise, and there was music going and there was whatever going off. And he wanted to, because, you've got a lot of players there, got a lot of cats, but you've also got a lot of players there who are starting off in their international careers. And they wanted them to experience some noise more than anything else. And the crowd were in there, lots of kids. It was half term, obviously. Lots of kids, lots of noise. And it created an atmosphere to give them some idea of what it's like to play in front of a crowd like that. And it was great to see, Barry.
Yeah, I just to go back on that point about getting the players' experience and expose that kind of atmosphere. It's good to see with the A-team games coming back that if they can move, maybe they can look to put a couple of them on at Twickenham and give some cheats away to kids and to grassroots clubs and try and get a decent crowd in for one of those and maybe get a bit of exposure for there. But just to go back on the 20-minute full on with Carl Dixon refereeing, did they have to have a TMO as well?
So I think they could hear me in the crowd telling them what was going on. Barry, it's all right. He did all right. But yeah, no, it was excellent. As I say, Monia did a grand job of emceeing it, as it were, and explaining exactly what was going on.
Actually, I'm not somebody who complains about the TMO like many other people do, and I do understand why, but I don't know whether you caught on YouTube any of the under-18 game yesterday. I watched about 10 or 15 minutes of it, and it's fast anyway. They really offload a lot. But the other thing that you really notice with no TMO is that the game just goes quick. There were a lot of refereeing mistakes, and often when you see something on the TV, the TMO will show that the ref is right 9 times out of 10. So you got a lot of mistakes, but it did go very quickly.
Well, I will say as well on that point, Duncan. I mean, I watched the game Cast Tigers versus Wigan Warriors on BBC on the other night, and yeah, I mean, I like the way that rugby league TMOs work. It's like I've seen this angle, I've made a decision, bang, and very rarely in rugby league do you see more than a minute and a half of them making a decision. And I do think sometimes we do go into the nth degree too much. It's like, what have I seen? Bang, yeah, thank you. Let's move on, get on with it. Quick thing on the Twitter training as well. I did have a word with God, His Royal Highness King Richard Hill, and passed my business card on. So I hope that Richard will get in touch with us. And also Kai Lagan of Love Island fame, which you two guys probably have no interest in whatsoever. And to be perfectly honest with you, neither do I. But I mean, he's a guy who's a big rugby union fan. He's got his own rugby union podcast as well. And did say that he listened to ours on occasion. So, I mean, and he's got quite a few followers on Instagram. Us athletic types tend to have that sort of like following, Doug.
Yeah, you put it on WhatsApp and were met with a wall of incomprehension, weren't you? So if he's listening now, I do apologise.
Hey, look, I'll talk to anybody if they got an interest in rugby and they want to talk about rugby and Saracens. I will talk to anybody. Right, let's finish this off with a quick 2 minutes on the Six Nations coming up. Let's go through the games. Interesting one, Ireland versus Wales, isn't it, this week? Ireland are going to stuff Wales, aren't they, Barry?
You'd imagine so. We've not really seen much from Wales in the first couple of weeks. That's going to frighten the Irish, and the Welsh have had their big day out as well at Twickenham, and they would need to improve several on that performance to even think about troubling the Irish. But you never know.
And likewise, I mean, France versus Italy, Duncan. I mean, it's Italy against Ireland. I thought huffed and puffed, but didn't really show enough. But they're moving in the right direction. France, as I said last time, I think, no Dupont, no Entermac, and now potentially Aldrit out as well. I mean, that spine of that team, that missing, Italy they've got a puncher's chance against France, but I can't see France losing.
I don't think so. It is interesting how big an effect it's had, isn't you? You'd imagine France with all their playing depth, but I guess it just shows when you get a player who's as good as Dupont and the others aren't bad either, that it does have an effect. They're definitely not what they were last season.
Well, indeed. And I mean, that brings us on to England playing Scotland, the old enemy, up at Murrayfield. And, the one thing Owen Farrell gave England was defensive leadership. I think against Scotland, it's going to be a step up from both Italy and Wales. This is where we could miss Owen and his defensive organisation quite a lot in this game, Barry.
Yeah, they tend to be dour and tight games up at Murrayfield, and I can see this one being pretty similar. I think it's going to be one for the purists, but it's been 4 years now we've held the Calcutta Cup, and it's about time we won it back, I think.
Well, absolutely. I have to agree with you there. And I mean, Murrayfield has been a place where England have gone and had a lot of joy, just not in recent years. We've seen enough to think that they can cause Scotland issues. The big problem is, like Wales' big game last week, Scotland's big game. And I've always said about Scotland, the sooner they look at England as just another game, the better they will be, and they will be contenders of the championship. Their problem is that they are going to get up for this game and then not follow out with the last two games, as they always do at the moment. Scotland have got to put in 80 minutes. If they don't put 80 minutes in, we could quite easily squeak it through a bit of pragmatism, which is what we've been playing with at the moment. If they, Scotland play for 40 minutes and then turn off like they have done in the first two games, it could be a good weekend for England, Duncan.
It's the game of the weekend, isn't it? Because the other games are probably one-sided, and it's impossible to call. When you said they got 10,000 into Twickenham to give those players an experience of that atmosphere, I was thinking, well, they've been in big games before, but they should have painted all your faces blue and told you to swear at them to get them ready for Murrayfield.
I must admit, I mean, Murrayfield, I've been to Murrayfield on a couple of occasions. I remember the year that, was it 1990 or 91, the year after Scotland won the Grand Slam, and then we got there. There was a year that Scotland could have won the Grand Slam, and I can't remember what year it is. I mean, I'd had quite a few points. I'd had a few McEwen's exports on the way up, I think. But as we came out, and England had won the Grand Slam themselves, and there was all these leaflets, Scotland Grand Slam jersey, ties, and everything like that. And honestly, it was like leaving in a funeral march, and someone started whistling Chopin's funeral march, and little pockets of Englishmen started doing it as well. That was quite fun. And I also remember going up with Lawrence Delanio's last game, and you're right. Murrayfield is my favourite ground to go to out of all of them. Everybody says the Principality Stadium, which I think is just the world's biggest Wetherspoons, and I hate having to sit somewhere where in certain seats you have to watch the game on the television. You might as well watch it at home. But Murrayfield has got a great atmosphere, always has done. I mean, you sat there as an Englishman amongst 50,000 Scotsmen who normally would be very, very level-headed and everything. At that point in time, they want to kill you. And they do. They all go Bill Gibson flavour on you. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be an interesting game, won't it?
Yeah, no, it's going to be very tight. I think Barry's right. It's going to be very tight. I hope it's, with Finn Russell on one side and England chucking it about a bit, it'll be more open than usual.
Well, absolutely. Well, look, gentlemen, something to look forward to, and again, plenty to hopefully talk about next week on the first cast with a bit more rugby returning and everything. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Duncan, for your time, and thank you, everybody, for listening in. We've been the first cast, and we'll say all the best and ta-ra, and speak to you next week.
This is the Fezcast.